Oh boy, look how many gear, cameras and lenses that we got. Some of these are mine that I've already reviewed, and some of these I just got from my subscribers for review, but all of this I'm going to be briefly talking to you about. So let me just turn around the camera and place it on a tripod and then say hello to you. Because my name is Kretz and I want to talk cameras to you today. Because I often receive questions, what kind of camera do I need? What would you recommend, this model or that model? And that question really bothers me. So that's what I'm going to be discussing today and just give you some recommendations how to choose the camera for your particular tasks. And if you like this video, if you like me reviewing stuff, just search my YouTube channel and go for the playlist, my videos in English, or it's called something like that, because I mostly vlog in Russian language, but sometimes I do videos in English like this one. If you like them, just press like button right now, just please put that button, click, and of course type down the comments. What would you like me to review? What would you like me to tell you about? So let's start. People often ask questions like deciding between 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras and stuff. And of course, any man, any girl, of course, relies on some budget, some number, some amount of money that you have. And it's obvious and it's understandable that you are choosing from your price range. But within that price range, there's always different types of cameras. Not exactly they differ in price, but they differ in features that they include. And that's the core point that I want to deliver to you today. Because you should be choosing a camera according to your tasks, to the genre in which you're going to be shooting in, the material and conditions that you're going to be shooting in. And I'll explain that a little bit later. And I'll tell you how to choose, what conditions to consider, what questions should you ask yourself before deciding on what camera to purchase and to spend your hardly earned money. The same thing, of course, concerns the lenses, but it's a different topics. And if you'd like me to talk about the lenses the same way that we are talking bodies today, just leave a comment down below and vote for other commenters that asked for that. So now let's begin with what? With what you're gonna be shooting. Before purchasing any gear, and especially the camera body, you should ask yourself, what do I want to shoot? What subject? There's tons and tons of questions you can ask yourself, and particularizing the subjects that you're gonna be shooting. But I'll number you some of them, not in the order of importance or something, just what I can really make up in my mind. So, all right, and some other topics and questions you can ask yourself, knowing what your wishes are actually inside your head. So now let's start with, say, what kinds of subjects are you going to be shooting? Moving subjects or still subjects? Because it actually matters. If there's a still subject, you don't need to have a fast or very broad autofocus, all right? You may be even fine with manual focusing because, it's easy when the subject is not moving, if it stands still. But if it is a moving subject, say sports, wildlife, street photography, anything, kids, then you really need to have fast autofocus and a lot of autofocusing points. So that's one topic that may be considered. But all right, another topic, say, what conditions, considering the light, are you going to be shooting in? Are you going to be shooting in broad daylight or in the night time? Because it really matters. Of course, you have flashes to have additional light. You have fast lenses with broad, wide maximum apertures to let in more light. But concerning the camera bodies, it really matters too, because if you're shooting in low light, you really better have a bigger sensor. Like say full frame sensor, because cropped sensor cameras, they have cropped sensors and they let in less light, and that creates more noise when you're trying to bring your ISO up to keep the exposure and stuff. So that's another question. How much light is it gonna be? Because you say outdoors there are more light, indoors there's not much light. say if you're shooting sports indoors. For a human eye, it may seem that there is tons of light, but considering the camera and fast shutter speeds that you want to freeze the motion, say of the basketball game or any other hockey playing, you need faster shutter speed, and that's really small amount of light. And even if for your human eyes that's enough, then for camera it's not. And so then you need faster lenses or full frame body that lets in more light. So sensor size really matters, and it depends on how much light you're gonna be shooting in. Another question, what kind of weather I'm gonna be shooting in? If it's studio, always. If it's indoors, always in good weather and good conditions, no critical humidity, no snow, water or something, then you might be okay with cheaply built camera without weather sealing and stuff. But if you're gonna be shooting in pouring rain or in freezing wind in the snow, you know, or in the desert with the sands and dust around, that's a totally different thing. You know, the cheaply built camera will not last a single day to you, while one of the, you know, beasts that I'm going to be showing you today will survive any weather. So that's the question: what weather? Do I need weather sealing or not? Then another question about moving subjects. Do I need fast shooting, fast burst rate, which means fast frame rate, shooting still photographs? Do you need to capture the moment, the very small piece of time, but in numerous pictures, say 8 frames per second, 10 frames per second, or even higher? Or you don't need that, or you're shooting a still model, say portrait with a adult model that can stand still for, you know, 3 seconds, and you're just doing single focusing, single shot. That's another question. Do you need fast shooting camera or not? So there are really many more questions like that you should be asking yourself. But now let's dive a little bit deeper in all of this and just consider and look for some cameras. Just brief review of different types of cameras right now. And so we'll maybe go a little bit deeper in any of these questions right now. So let's start with very basic, very cheap, very popular as well, but it was quite expensive in its times. It costed over 3,000 bucks, but these days it's very cheap, I don't know, 100, 150 bucks. And I'm talking about 5D Classic. This is the cheapest full frame camera in the world. What's good about it? Very good build quality. It's magnesium alloy body. It's not weather sealed, but Canon cameras are good. And of course, I'm not talking about Canon cameras in particular. I'm talking because I'm shooting Canon, but you can apply everything that I say to any brand, and the types of cameras are pretty much the same across the brands. So we're talking Canon today, but you can apply it to anything. So 5D Classic of 2005, very old camera, but it's really still capable. And its biggest point that it's a true full frame sensor and 13 megapixels. It's pretty much enough for everything. 13 megapixels. It's okay even for cropping to say 5 or 4 or even 3 or 2 megapixels for social network. It's okay. And 13 is enough even for print. I printed it for A4 page size, and even for A3 page size, 13 megapixels is quite all right. So what's good about it as well? It has very nice ergonomics, it's cheap, it accepts any lenses, any professional, any amateur Canon EF lenses, only EF, it doesn't accept EFS, crop sensor lenses. But you can even buy like this one, like 51.8 from Canon or from other manufacturers, and receive absolutely stunningly, beautifully gorgeous pictures from it, because it's full frame. And another thing, it's quite a unique sensor here, and many people say it has its own color science, it has its own color rendition. So the colors from 5D Classic are absolutely beautiful. In most cases you don't even need to edit them. You may edit shadows and highlights and exposure, but concerning the colors, they are absolutely beautiful from this camera, and this is the cheapest one. And as I've told you, this is a full frame, so it's better in low light. Although it only has ISO range from 100 to 1600, which is actually it's normal, and it was basic for in the film era. It was classic from 100 to 1600. It was top, but it also has extended modes in ISO 50 and ISO 3200 if you need it, and all these ISO settings, they are all okay. You can work with them. Of course, the higher ISO, the more noise you get, but it's okay, and you shoot better in low light with this camera than with the crop sensor cameras. So, but it only has 3 frames per second or something, so you cannot shoot moving subjects that fast, and it has only 9 autofocusing points, with only the central one being cross type, so the most sensitive and the most reliable. But I'll tell you some secret. Even top of the line Olympic photographers most of the time use central focusing point only, even having dozens of focusing points in modern cameras, or even the whole area of the screen in the electronic viewfinders in mirrorless cameras. They still, most top professionals prefer the central point because it's most reliable. So you have this point here, and you just need to learn how to use this camera, and it's a very good choice, very cheap, full frame. But how to shoot in really, really low light, and how to shoot moving subjects, how to track faces, you know, how to track sports, birds and stuff. Now, if we need to track the subjects and shoot really fast burst rate, and have a good build quality, and then we have this beast. This is the beast of the beasts. You know, there's a beaster beast as well, because the Beaster Beast is 1DX, it's top of the line, it's flagship camera of the Canon. There's 1DX, 1DX Mark II and 1DX Mark III. And they are really, really expensive, but 1DX is much cheaper than it used to be. And before 1DX, the top sports and reporters and journalists camera was this one, 1D Mark IV. I just received it from my subscriber for a review, and I really love it. It's absolutely gorgeous camera. So, what's in particular, what differs in from such simple photo cameras like 5D? Well, the build quality, you know, the form factor. You can shoot vertically, and it has some dials and buttons for vertical shooting, and you can, of course, shoot vertically and horizontally. And it has so many buttons. You see here and here and here, so almost anything and everything you can change and switch with these buttons, not getting into menu. And that is very, very important if you're shooting some moving subjects and you don't have time to look at the screen and stuff. You can just stick to viewfinder and switch anything with the buttons, not being distracted from the you know, the eyepiece here. It also has bigger and with a bigger resolution screen, the 5D, so the screen is really nice. You can actually review pictures, because I've told you the 5D has a rear LCD, but it's really of low resolution. This one has much bigger resolution. You can zoom in, and it's okay. So this screen is absolutely workable, so to say, and it has tons and tons of settings for autofocus, and it has even rear smaller screen here for some additional information. So it is very high quality build and really weather sealed. This camera will survive from North Pole to southern deserts and stuff. And it has a burst rate of 10 frames per second, very fast shooting, comparing to, say, 3 in the 5D Classic. And it has, let me show you, it has 2 card slots here. The 5D Classic only has one CF card slot. This has CF and SD in case you need a backup, or you can shoot to both cards simultaneously to have a copy, you know, not to lose your data if one of the cards fails. So this is, I can tell really much about this camera, but you know, it's a totally different type, and of course it's more expensive, the 5D Classic, but it is still affordable. This 1D Mark IV is quite affordable, and if you have the money, then get 1DX, even the first one, the Mark I, which is simply called 1DX. But this 1D Mark IV is twice cheaper than 1DX, and it's still absolutely gorgeous camera. It's tough build quality. It has huge battery here. See, you can shoot with this battery for 2-3 days easily. Of course, depending on your shooting style, but still, you can get bigger and longer lasting battery than this. So, ergonomics, build quality, and screen and stuff, all the features, it's good. But what are some peculiarities of this? Is first the sensor size, which is APS-H, which is 1.3 times crop. So it's not a full frame, it is smaller than full frame, but it's still really good. And if you are shooting sports or wildlife or photojournalism, for which this camera is mostly targeted at, then it's okay, because all of these lenses, say full frame lenses, which it accepts, give you a little bit 1.3 times magnification, zooming in, and it might be even your advantage comparing to full frame. Of course, it's a little bit less of the bigger depth of field, so a little bit less shallow depth of field, not so beautifully blurred background or foreground, but it brings you closer to the subject, which may be preferable to the depth of field if you're shooting sports or wildlife or any moving and distant subjects. So it is a smaller sensor, it's a little bit worse in low light, but this particular model, 1D Mark IV, has much higher ISO choices than 5D Classic, and as well it has auto ISO, which 5D Classic does not have. You only have to dial it manually, but this has auto ISO, higher ISO, and it works perfectly fine. But not only it has a smaller sensor, but it also has the resolution of only 16 megapixels. It's bigger than 5D Classic, which has about 13, and 16 is pretty much enough for everything. And 16 creates smaller files, which is good, easier to transfer, easier to edit on your software. And 16 is pretty much enough for any type of photography, even for zooming in, for cropping. But it's not the biggest resolution. There are now cameras at 24 megapixels, 30, 45, 60 megapixels. So 16 is not that big, but considering its build quality and its price, it's a bargain. No, nothing more to tell you about it, except that it shoots video, unlike 5D Classic, and it has mic input, so you can shoot a really true video with a decent sound with a mic input right here, but only with manual focusing. Now, if a burst rate is not an issue for you, you don't need to carry this big and heavy camera. I haven't told you, but you've seen, according to the size, of course it's big, heavy and expensive. You want something lighter. You don't need that terrible, not terrible, I would say horrible weather sealing and build quality. Horrible for the weather because it's gonna survive anything. You want smaller, but you need to have bigger resolution, good low light capabilities. Then you can go for the second iteration of 5D, which is 5D Mark II. And what's good about it? It is smaller, it is lighter, it has pretty much the same ergonomics as the previous professional body you see. It has absolutely the same screen, the same resolution, the same size as 1D Mark IV. Right. So it's a really good screen, and what's also good about it, it has a full frame sensor, bigger than 1D Mark IV, and it has 21 plus megapixels. I've told you, these square cameras are the really professional ones, but even the flagship camera of May 2022 by Canon is 1DX Mark III, and that camera has only 20 megapixels. While this one has 21 plus. It's an old camera, but it gets the job done, and it has really beautiful colors, not so special like 5D Classic, but very beautiful for portraits and for studio work. For if you're not in a hurry, you're not shooting erratically moving subjects, this is absolutely fantastic camera. It has good screen, good build quality, good ergonomics, full frame sensor of decent resolution, and you can install Magic Lantern software in here, unlike 1D series. Magic Lantern is third-party software which adds I don't know, dozens of additional features to the camera. And considering this also has mic input and it shoots video, but only with manual focusing, but with the tons of settings via Magic Lantern, you can use this as a proper film camera for video for movies. So it's about twice as expensive as the 5D Classic, and it's about the same price, maybe a little bit cheaper than 1D Mark IV. And you can shoot gorgeous portraits with it and gorgeous landscapes, because 16 megapixels may not give you that many details in the landscapes, but 21 megapixels is much more. So it's good. And you can use the lenses like this one. If you spend your money on the body, then you can use like this Samyang 85 1.4, very fast, very sharp lens, manual focusing only, but really cheap. And along with this camera, you can get anything if you're not in a hurry, because it only has 9 autofocusing points, absolutely the same as 5D Classic, and only the central one with the cross-type focusing points. So you also gonna be shooting with basically only one focusing point. Let me change the exposure a little bit and add a little bit of ND, because I see it's getting brighter here. The sun is coming out of the clouds. But I haven't told you that 1D Mark IV has 45 autofocusing points, which is absolutely fantastic for shooting moving subjects and tracking different focusing points according to the subject's move. But these and 5D Classic only have one central cross-type focusing point to work with. But if you're not in a hurry, 5D Classic is a really, really good choice. So it's a different type of camera. And let's go for another type of camera. If you are like me, so you are vlogging, you're shooting YouTube, so much light. Let's compensate for it. Oh, no. Let's see. All right, so exposure here must be quite nice. All right. If you are like me and you need autofocus like this, you see, I am moving, but the camera is tracking me. I absolutely need this, and I'm looking here at my side flipping rotating screen, which none of the previously described cameras have. I can control myself via the screen on the side right here. Alright, and it has dual pixel autofocus. I'll tell you in a second what camera is this that I'm shooting with, but I'll show you pretty much the same type of camera, which is 6D Mark II. This is my primary camera, and I'm only shooting with this one, which I'll call you a little bit later, because I need to show you the 6D Mark II before the lens, or else I would shoot this video with this camera. So this is full frame. It is smaller than 5Ds, it is lighter than 5Ds. As far as I know, this is the lightest full frame DSLR on the market still. So the smallest and the lightest DSLR, full frame DSLR ever. But its biggest feature is, of course, the rotating and articulating screen. And it is touch screen, so let me turn the camera on. You can use it simply like your smartphone, you see? Just tapping, swiping, zooming in, zooming out on the pictures, swapping and walking through menus with the touch screen. So it's absolutely fantastic. And of course, let me see, you can rotate it and see yourself shooting like this. You might be watching what's going on. And it has dual pixel autofocus. This is the autofocusing system with which we are shooting right now. So if you're shooting video by yourself and you absolutely need articulating touchscreen with dual pixel. But this camera also has 26 full frame megapixels, which is really many megapixels to shoot photo, and you can crop severely with this. And it has about 6.5 frames per second for photo shooting, which is really nice. It's not 10 like 1D4, but it's also not 3 like 5D Classic or 4 like 5D Mark II. So it's nice burst rate, nice autofocus, nice touch screen. It's in the middle of everything. It's not the cheapest camera, but it's probably the best all-around camera for photos, for videos, for anything, for vlogging. for wildlife. It has big resolution for landscapes and nice colors for portraits. So all in all, it has decent build quality, and it has mic input for videos. So it's really good, but it's not so cheap. There are cheaper options on the cropped sensor cameras. Previously, before that camera, before I saved up money for this camera, I've used 70D and I used 80D. And I still consider 70D being the absolutely best value camera, because it has rotating touchscreen, it has dual pixel, and has around 6 or 7 frames per second for photos. It has full HD resolution with dual pixel. It has 20 megapixels for photos. And you can also install Magic Lantern in there with full-scaled features. You cannot install Magic Lantern in 6D Mark II, only in 5D Mark IV and other cameras. So all-arounder is 70D is the cheapest, considering the number of features that it proposes to you. Of course, the 80D is better, but there is no Magic Lantern for 80D, and 90D is a different price range. So these are the types of cameras that you have. The cheapest one, but which gives you full frame and really good picture quality. The fast one, the goodly best built one with better ergonomics. The one that is not so expensive but has higher resolution, nice colors, full frame sensor, or 6D Mark II like this, or even the original 6D, but it does not have articulating screen. It doesn't have dual pixel autofocus, so it's much worse, but it's also twice as cheap. And what I'm shooting right now is actually SL2, which is called in the United States, and in Europe and other countries it's called 200D. It's really small, very light, probably the lightest, one of the lightest DSLR with cropped sensor cameras, but it still has dual pixel autofocus and rotating touchscreen. It's a really cheap camera, and it has 24 megapixels, but only 9 focusing points, with the one central being cross-type, just like in the 5D Classic. But it's light and cheap and capable. So these are all different types of cameras, and they differ not only in price range, but in the feature range. And so the question that you must ask yourself first is, what type of shooting are you gonna be involved in? So if it's anything, then you have to have something universal like this. And that's what I prefer. It may lack some features, it may keep me behind in something, in some situations, but all in all, it's better camera for me personally. And for everything else that I described, if those features are more important to you than some others, then go for it. Just don't go for the general expectations, general recommendations by vloggers, say, like me. Just find the features that you particularly need. What kind of photography you're doing, what type of genre actually, what kind of lenses are you going to be using, distant subjects, close subjects, fast-moving subjects, daylight, nighttime, anything else. Just consider those questions. The more questions you ask yourself on what kind of photography or videography you're going to be doing, then the more particular and more suitable camera you're going to be choosing. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Thanks for watching. Leave comments if you have any questions. Leave your wishes on what to tell you about more, and watch some other videos on my channel. Of course, subscribe. It will greatly help, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. And until then, goodbye. Where's my lens cap? Here it is. Magnetic lens cap. Beautiful.